On a cold day in January 1952, a small group of people gathered to say goodbye to a man who had made the entire world laugh. But inside the cemetery gates, there was no laughter. There was only the quiet grief for Jerome Howard, the man everyone knew as Curly. As his family mourned, a single guest appeared who did not belong. Their presence sent a silent shock through the crowd because this person represented all the pain that had led to this very day. The funeral was a somber affair held at the Home of Peace Cemetery in East Los Angeles. It was a Jewish service for a man who had become a comedy icon. One-third of the legendary Three Stooges, his brothers Moe and SHMP and his comedy partner Larry Fine stood with heavy hearts. They were burying not just a co-star, but their brother, a man whose life had ended far too soon at the age of 48. For millions of fans, the man they were mourning was Curly, the human cartoon with the high-pitched voice and the nyack that could make anyone smile. He was the indestructible man-child who could take an eye poke or a slap to the head and come back with a woo-woo-woo. But the people gathered at his grave knew the truth. They were burying Jerome Lester Horwitz, a man whose final years were a world away from the joy he brought to others. His life had ended not with a laugh, but with a series of devastating strokes that left him paralyzed and unable to speak, confined to hospitals and nursing homes. The grief in the air was thick. Moe, the tough-as-nails leader of the Stooges, was now just a heartbroken older brother. Larry, his loyal friend, had lost a partner he called the greatest natural comedian he had ever known. They were surrounded by family and friends who had watched helplessly as Curly's bright light dimmed and then went out completely. And in the midst of this profound sadness, one person stood among them. This person was not a friend. They were not a beloved family member. To the few who knew the whole story, this guest was the living, breathing symbol of Curly's tragic downfall. Their arrival at his final resting place was a quiet, stunning act that no one could have predicted. Who was this person? And why did their presence feel like a final cruel joke at the expense of a man who had given his life for comedy? To understand the tragedy of Curly's death, you have to understand the man who existed long before the world knew his name. He wasn't born Curly. He was born Jerome Lester Horwitz on October 22, 1903 in Brooklyn, New York. He was the youngest of 5 brothers. And because of that, his family gave him a nickname that would stick with him his whole life, Babe. Unlike his older brothers, Moe and SHMP, who were always getting into trouble, Babe was a quiet child. He wasn't a great student, but he was a fantastic athlete on the school's basketball team. He was also a gifted ballroom dancer known for his smooth moves at local dance halls, where he would sometimes cross paths with the future movie star George Raft. He was a handsome young man with a full head of thick wavy brown hair and a stylish mustache. But his youth was marked by a moment of pain that would physically change him forever. When he was just 13 years old, he was cleaning a rifle when it accidentally went off, firing a bullet into his left ankle. His brother Moe acted fast, rushing him to the hospital and saving his life. The wound, however, left his left leg noticeably thinner and gave him a permanent limp. Doctors wanted to perform surgery to fix it, but Jerome was terrified of the operation and refused. For the rest of his life, he would walk with that limp. It was a secret pain he would later learn to hide from the world in a very clever way. When he became a star, he developed his famous over-the-top walk to make his limp look like just another part of his goofy character. Jerome idolized his older brothers and watched as Moe and SHMP found success in vaudeville as part of a comedy act with a man named Ted Healy. Jerome would hang around backstage dreaming of joining them. His chance finally came in 1932 when SHMP decided to leave the group to pursue a solo career. Moe immediately suggested that his kid brother Babe could take SHMP's place. But when Jerome showed up to audition, Ted Healy took one look at the handsome young man with the elegant hair and mustache and said no. Healy felt he looked too good to be a Stooger. What happened next was a decision that would bring Jerome incredible fame, but would also plant the seeds of his future unhappiness. Determined to get the part, Jerome walked out of the room. He returned just minutes later, having shaved off his mustache and every last strand of his hair. In that moment, Jerome Babe Horwitz disappeared and Curly was born. But the price for that transformation was a deep insecurity that would haunt him for the rest of his days. He hated his shaved head, feeling it made him look like a little kid and unattractive to women. The very act that made him a star was also the source of a wound to his self-confidence that never truly healed. With Curly as the new third Stooger, the group's popularity exploded. His childlike energy and brilliant ad-lib skills made him an instant fan favorite. The Three Stooges signed with Columbia Pictures and began making the short films that would make them legends. But behind the laughter and the on-screen chaos, the life of a Stooger was grueling. Their schedule was relentless, a non-stop cycle of filming and touring that took a heavy toll, especially on Curly. During World War II, when they weren't filming, the Stooges would spend up to 7 months a year on the road performing for service members. The work was intense and exhausting. Curly had a strict rule from Moe: no drinking during work or on stage. But as soon as the day was done, Curly would head out to nightclubs. He used foodall and partying as a way to cope with the immense stress and his own deep-seated insecurities. He was a lavish spender, buying expensive things for himself and for the women he was always trying to impress. He was often on the verge of bankruptcy, and Moe had to step in to manage his money and even help him with his taxes, trying to protect his younger brother from his own impulses. His personal life was just as chaotic. After a brief first marriage that was annulled, he married a woman named Elaine Ockey in 1937. They had a daughter together, Marilyn. But the marriage didn't last. They divorced in 1940. And it was after this split that Curly's health began a noticeable decline. He started gaining a lot of weight and developed dangerously high blood pressure. By 1944, the strain was starting to show on screen. Fans could see that something was wrong. His energy, once boundless, was fading. His voice, once high and squeaky, became deeper and hoarser. His movements were slower, and he struggled to remember his lines. The vibrant, energetic Curly was becoming a shadow of his former self. In January 1945, things got so bad that he had to be hospitalized. The doctors gave him a terrifying diagnosis: extreme hypertension, a retinal hemorrhage, which is bleeding in the back of the eye, and obesity. His body was breaking down. Moe, seeing how sick his brother was, went to the head of Columbia Pictures, Harry Conn, and begged him to give Curly some time off to rest and recover, but Conn refused. The Three Stooges shorts were incredibly profitable, and the studio head would not halt production for any reason. Curly was forced to go back to work. The decision was a death sentence. The system that was making him a star was also him, and the people in charge chose profits over his life. In his final years, when he was still able to communicate, Curly once sadly told a friend, "I guess I'll never be able to make the children laugh again." He was wrong about that. Generations of children and adults still roar with laughter at his genius. But the man himself, Jerome Horwitz, never found the simple happiness he gave to so many others. He spent his life searching for love and acceptance, but often found exploitation and heartbreak instead. The shocking appearance of that one unexpected guest at his funeral was a final silent testament to the private pain he endured. A somber reminder of the unbelievably heavy price he paid to make the world laugh.